Hello group, hi. This is my last attempt. I've had about 12 attempts at this, and as I'm not using editing equipment, I'm a bit behind the times with that. I've got to do this using other methods. But today we're talking about the release, a very exciting release of a terrific engine, and we're talking about the OKMO Lister D replica. I've got my photo album out there. There's lots of pictures missing from some of the engines that I've owned in the past, and will be going through them a bit later. But let's have a little look at the history of a Lister D. Right, okay, the Lister D started off life as a Spec 10 engine and was very first assembled on the 26th of October 1926, so of course this year it's the centenary. Started life as a Spec 10 500 RPM 1 horsepower model with a serial number of 80,000. That was the very first Lister D, the serial number of 80,000. It's a 350cc engine with a 3-inch bore and a 3-inch stroke in various speeds of 700 RPM, 1.5 horsepower, 1000 RPM at 2 horsepower, or in the case of this one, this was a 1 horsepower, 500 RPM engine, with over 250,000 of these engines made in the UK and distributed throughout the world. These were made in various forms, some on a trolley like that one there and like the OKMO one, and of course some were mounted on cast iron bases to drive plant and machinery, namely generators and water pumps, etc. And along the way some were actually used in cement mixers too. Here we have a typical generating set of the late 20s, early 30s on the cast iron base, again sporting the early shaft driven magneto. That one looks like an ML. Later ones use the Lucas RS1 magneto, and of course this one here, of course, having the crankcase door tells you it's a later engine, although it still has the early fuel tank and the early carburetor system. But the Lister D's terrific engines. You could actually collect one from every year from 1926 to 1964. Thousands are still available in the UK, but good ones now are getting very hard to find. Here we have another typical Lister lighting set on the factory mounted cast iron base, direct mounted to, or direct coupled to, a dynamo. Some were like that and some had a double V-belt around the flywheel and the dynamo was mounted along here. These sets were very successful and produced usually either 50 volt DC or 110 volt DC, with later models, the very later models, producing 230 volt AC. And here is the star of the show. This is the OKMO engine, and isn't she just beautiful? You could not ask or wish for a better and more faithful replica than this absolutely amazing model from OKMO. Everything is correct, the proportions are right, it's got a little drain tap there and the shaft drive magneto there. It's got the early suction carburetor without the fluid bowl, and the whole thing is absolutely amazing. There already are uploads on YouTube of this engine, and it runs just incredibly well and sounds incredibly realistic. Here we have a technical drawing of the OKMO product, and this part here where the starting handle goes in, etc. The whole thing is just so faithfully reproduced. This model, I would say, was based again on a late 20s, early 30s model by the crankcase door and the shaft drive magneto. Later models like this one had the AML float chamber, or AML, whatever you want to pronounce it, float chamber here, and this was a gravity fed carburettor with a starting button there. It works as a sort of valve, and that is the fuel regulator. Some of these as well were also converted to run on petrol and paraffin, with a heat exchanger mounted on the manifold here, a tank there for petrol to start the engine, and the main tank on paraffin, and a two-way tap what was usually mounted underneath there. As we look at this picture here and compare it to the OKMO engine, you'll just see how exact the replica is to this picture of a genuine one. Lucas ML Magneto there, and of course the tank where it's mounted, etc. And of course this one has the crankcase door, which lacked in the very early engines, and like the OKMO one, it features that, which says it's probably late 20s or early 30s. And there we see all the detail in its full glory, with the little crankcase door there and the drain tap. This piece here on the full size one was to connect a radiator with the return there and the outlet there into the radiator. But you can see by that just what a perfect replica this engine is, even right down to the spoked wheels. We're on to pictures of one I owned there. That one's a 1946, just driving a simple car dynamo, because at the time getting a proper dynamo was very hard to find, and even DC motors to convert were very, very rare indeed. Just a shot of the engine there from another angle, and you can see the switchboard with knife switches and brass toggle switches. And that engine was my very first listed D actually, and it cost me the grand total of 60 quid in 1986 or 87. Might have been 87. £60 that engine. Of course 60 quid then is a lot more then than it is now. The trolley was something I had made from a relative. I thought I'd show you this one. This is a 1938 special application engine that was in the process of me restoring it, and that one had the weird specification of 1.9 horsepower at 900 RPM. I haven't got a lot of pictures, there's a lot missing out the album, but I'm going to go through and see what I can find anyway. Thanks for watching. This one here, it's not the same engine you've seen in the last pictures of the one driving the dynamo. This one is a 1942 or a 43, again driving the same dynamo and running a few lamps, except the dynamo on this one was rewound for a much larger output, and that was probably one of the best listed Ds I ever had. However, I did have a 1939 model that was absolutely stunning, with a huge 14-inch flywheel. Shot from a different angle of the engine running a few lights there. I've got very fond memories of the Lister D engines. Never let you down, super reliable, and they were fantastic on fuel. There were 350cc with a 3-inch bore and a 3-inch stroke for the 750 RPM 1.5 horsepower model. And here we are back on the subject for the final pick of this relatively short video of the incredible engine produced by Jin of OKMO engines. This engine is so faithful to scale, and everything is just like the real thing, with the rocker in there, the tappets, etc. And the whole detail of this engine is as exact as you could get one, put it that way. And this is a model that undoubtedly is a model that you must have in your collection. They are, as I say, really, really lovely engines. and if it's anything like the original one, it will be super reliable. And I understand that gin now is going to use metal piston rings over the rubber ones, which again is another bonus and adds to the realism or authenticity of the engine. Over 250,000 of these engines were made by Lister and distributed worldwide, and this engine here is the best tribute you could possibly have for probably the most successful stationary engine that was ever made in the world. Well, there we are. I hope that you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Gary Miller, and please like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Buy this engine. Bye.